morning and welcome to our first SMEs for Smart Urban Innovation webinar. Kfar Municipality is honored to hold this event as part of our participation in the EU-funded SMEs for Smart Cities project that aims to help cities become more sustainable using smart and innovative solutions. As you can see, in the spirit of the project, we are using a unique platform that lets all participants network by clicking on the picture and moving to a private chat. This is an opportunity to welcome all participants from Italy, Spain, and Israel. We are happy to have you and welcome you to chat to colleagues worldwide, initiating future collaboration. Today, we will present a variety of topics, giving us motivation and practical tools to bridge the gap between the public sector and small and medium enterprises, SMEs, and hopefully understand each of our roles in this mission. I'm Tal Peled, Director of Research, Development and Fundraising in the Sustainability and Innovation Department in Kfar Municipality. I'm happy to introduce Mr. Antonio Fuentes Cano, International Project Manager at the Business Innovation Center of Murcia, SEIM, lead partner of the project. As part of his professional experience, he has been involved in the management of several European projects and research and innovation. Antonio will tell us about the project and the coming steps for implementation.
Good morning. Thank you, Tal, for the introduction, and thanks to all the Kfar Municipality for the organization of this event. That it's very important for our project, since it's meant to be the starting point for the creation of the city support group. I would like to give just a very general overview of this project, SME for Smart Cities, that is framed within a program funded by the European Union called ENI CBC-MED, that supports cooperation projects for a more competitive, innovative, and sustainable Mediterranean area. In this particular case, we are 7 partners from 5 different countries, and the main goal of SME for Smart Cities, that has a total duration of 3 years, is to encourage the entry of Mediterranean SMEs in the smart cities market, involving also cities in the co-creation of solutions to the urban challenges. We think that only if public authorities and SMEs work together, we will be able to come up with the best technological solutions to make cities more efficient and more livable for communities. For this, project partners have been till now identifying the main existing technologies in the market, and also the needs and barriers that SMEs and cities are facing. Now we are entering a new phase or new stage in the project, in which an online platform is being developed to provide training and consultancy services to SMEs and to support cities as well to overcome all these barriers that have been detected. Then the other main achievement, expected achievement of the project will be the launch of a call for innovative and technological solutions addressing the urban challenges identified. Co-creation and co-innovation among all the actors involved in the project will be fostered to come up with the best solutions that will be finally tested with the support of some Mediterranean cities. Therefore, it is expected that the project will finally benefit to around 50 SMEs that will be supported with the training program and will have the opportunity to apply for the call for solutions, also participating in Mediterranean cities and their civil servants, business support organizations, clusters, business associations, universities, and other research centers that either are partners or associates or will be involved during the project through the different activities. And finally, also local urban communities benefiting from the implementation of new smart initiatives. And well, before giving the floor back, I would like just to welcome and thank all the attendees I really hope you will enjoy this event and also will find interesting all the topics and discussions that will take place. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. I'm honored to invite Mr. Itai Tzachar to welcome us all. Itai is the CEO of Kfar Saba Municipality. He previously worked at the Prime Minister's office and managed a consulting company specializing in crisis management and complex projects, making him quite the person to manage the COVID crisis for us. Itai is the spirit that pushes Kfar Saba to promote sustainability and innovation. His motto is, "Don't tell me why not, tell me how to make it work." Itai.
Hello, good morning to all of you, and shalom from Kfar Saba. Kfar Saba is one of the biggest cities in Israel, and most important, much more important, it is a city on a journey to be the best city in Israel. We believe in it, and we are doing our best to achieve that. Our participant in this important program is part of it. We do believe that we cannot manage our city without deep values of sustainability and innovation. In our municipality, by the way, these two values are managed in the same department. I also would like to mention the importance of PPP and triple helix model that bring to the same room and same table the public and private sector along with the NGOs and the academy. In that way, we can hear and learn a variety of opinions, languages, background, and improve ourselves and our outcomes in any field, in any aspect. I would like to thank to all of you, to all our partners for organizing this event and this project, this very important project, and to all our guests here in Kfar Saba, in the Zoom or the other platform. And wish you all a very effective day and welcome. We would like to see you here in Kfar Saba in the near future. And thanks again, and goodbye.
Thank you, Itai. And on to our first inspirational lecture by Dr. Roy Tezana, who will discuss the fascinating study on the future of technology and society. His main concern lies in the future of education, work, biotechnology, crime, and warfare. He has conducted research on these topics for various government ministries and international bodies. We're excited to hear you.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me just fine? Okay, wonderful. So, guys, it's a pleasure being here today, and thank you so much to the Kfar Saba Municipality for inviting me. I'd like to share a screen with you first. Don't forget to share audio. That's the usual problem. Yeah, here it is. So we're going to talk today about pathways for technological advancement in cities. And I want to make clear that I'm going to go over all the good things that could happen. I'm trying very, very hard to steer away from the negative, because everybody's talking about the negative, and rather to show you just how fantastic, how wonderful, how optimized things could really be if you considered involving and integrating technologies in cities. But before we do that, I want to start by asking you a question. And you all have the public chat box to the right of your screen. I want you to use it because I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to respond with just one word. Let me show you what the question is. So I want to ask you this. What has happened to material consumption in the United States in the last 50 years? Has the US consumed more, which is obviously a bad thing for the environment and so on? Has it consumed pretty much the same, just the same in 1970 and today? Or has it consumed less since 1970? Has material consumption gone down since 1970? So please, guys, you have the public chat. Tell me what you think. Has it went up? Has it stayed the same? Has it declined? Let me see your answers. And by the way, it's taking me about 10 seconds before I can actually see your answers. So it's going to take me a while before I respond. Well, come on, everybody. I know you know how to use the public chat, right? Okay. I see. Oh, okay, great. Okay, so Maya says it went up. Anyone else? Up. Hila Robert, up. Shiran Jacobi went up. Okay, so I think you got I think you got the idea. Basically, most people think it went up. But if you look at the actual evidence that we have today, it seems that while consumption did go up until the 1970s, ever since that time, it started going down. So Americans not only consume less resources per capita, but also as a country as a whole. And we're not just talking about any kind of resources. We're talking about the building blocks of every human civilization. We're talking about plastic. We're talking about steel. We're talking about copper. We're talking about fertilizers, about timber, about paper. And the consumption of all those went up until 1970s, and since then, it started going down. Steel consumption went down by 15%. Aluminum consumption went down by 30%, and so on. And it's not because Americans produced less. They actually produced more, but they required less resources for that. And we're also talking about many different chemicals as well. Even the fields, the acreage of the cornfields, it didn't go down exactly, maybe a little bit since the 1930s, but the yield per acre went up dramatically. So today the fields produce 4 times more than what they used to produce about 80 years ago. And it's not because we're using more fertilizers, as I said. Actually, the fertilizer use declined by 25% since 1999. And the use of irrigation water declined by 22% since it peaked in 1984. So again, we are consuming less, and we are seeing the same. Wait, can't you hear me? Here, I'll bring the microphone closer to my face. So we are actually getting the same done for less resources. And why is that? Well, let me give you another example, what I call the evolution of beer cans. This is a beer can from 1959, when it used to weigh 84 grams. 1959. Now we're moving 60 years into the future, and in 2020, this is a beer can. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist it. Yes, it's Corona. And in 2020, a beer can that provides the same service, holds the same amount of liquid, actually only weighs 12 grams. So that's 1/7 of its weight in 1959. We need 1/7 of the aluminum we used to need in order to provide the same service. We are optimizing our use of resources. And here is another example. This is what I call the Great Convergence. Because if you look at ads in the newspaper from 1991, you'll see electronics firms that are advertising a whole range of products, radios, phones, video cameras, picture cameras, cassette players, calculators, clocks, and so on and so on. And all of these products, all of these devices are now just in this tiny smartphone that we all have in our pockets. So again, we're seeing that we consume less, we need less resources in order to get the same value. And this is what we call dematerialization. And it's the first pathway that I wanted to talk about with you. And in fact, I think I already demonstrated to you what it means. When services or products undergo dematerialization, it means that you don't need as many resources to provide answer for the same need. Sometimes the devices become smaller. In other cases, they remain the same size, but they require less resources to put them together, less energy to operate them. And we're even seeing dematerialization being applied to areas that we didn't think could really be dematerialized before. For example, food. And how can you dematerialize food, right? I mean, you can't dematerialize food. You need the same amount of calories as you always did. But what we see is that food can actually be dematerialized by reducing the amount of resources that we need in order to produce new food. Because, for example, in order to produce beef, you need 1 kilogram of beef, you need approximately 15,000 liters of water. Whereas if you want to use synthesized meat and synthesized burger and so on, plant-based burger, you only need somewhere between 3,000 liters of water for each kilogram of those kinds of burgers. So what that means is that we can reduce the production cost of beef or beef alternatives by 80%. And we're not only seeing it happening for beef or for meat. We're now starting to see a new revolution starting, that of vertical urban farming. We're talking about urban farming areas that are usually located in buildings in the cities. And this technology has really leapt forward in the last 2 decades, mainly because we're using LEDs that are more efficient and less wasteful in energy. Remember, dematerialization again. So they actually optimize the energy consumption by 40%. And the other great thing that's happening is that you have robots that can do most of the growth and the irrigation and the reaping and the processing of the food all on their own. So right now we usually grow only fruits, vegetables, and spices, but you can find urban farming for flowers and even cannabis as well. One of the largest urban farms in the world is that of Dubai Badia Farms. And just to explain to you what how much dematerialization we experience in urban farms, we're talking about one urban farm with an area of 12,000 square meters that produces the same volume of produce that would have been obtained from an agricultural field 3.6 million square meters in size. So that's a reduction of the area you need by 3,000. One 3,000th of what you used to need, and it does all that while consuming only 1% the amount of irrigation water that we used to need in order to irrigate those agricultural fields. And another thing, another step of dematerialization that we see in regards to food is clean meat. This is meat that is being grown in labs. You grow muscle cells and you harvest them to get meat. And if it sounds horrifying to you, well, remember that the same happens in the body of the cow, except that there, the cells also receive hormones, they are being exposed to viruses, bacteria, antibiotics, and so on. So it's no wonder that the new meat companies call their products clean meat. It's clean of pollutants, it's clean of guilt, and the only problem is that it still costs a lot, right? Well, not so much, because we're starting to see restaurants like the chicken in Israel that is actually serving chicken steak, except that the chicken in this case has never seen the inside of a coop. It has never actually walked on two legs or flapped its wings. This chicken steak was created in the lab by in the lab that is adjacent to the restaurant. And if you are lucky enough to get a table in that restaurant, you can actually witness the steaks being manufactured in front of your eyes through a glass window. And the best part? It's free. Because right now they still want to know, the company behind this, the Israeli company, still wants to know whether they got the taste and the texture just right. Now, consider what it means. Once we get parity with the cost of actual meat, we're going to essentially have in vitro meat, lab meat, clean meat, however you like to call it, everywhere. Not just because it's going to be cheaper, but also because you can accomplish more with this meat. You can grow it in an endless variety of ways. So why shouldn't we use it? And we're talking about even more dematerialization than that. For example, obtaining food from thin air. That sounds impossible, right? Except that it is possible. Turns out it is possible and even commercially successful. We're talking about algae that grow in transparent containers. They're exposed to sunlight and air. And they sequester CO2, carbon dioxide from the air, and turn it, using the sunlight for energy, they turn it into fats, into sugars, into proteins. And every few days they are being harvested, dehydrated, and you get a powder that is rich in proteins, and you can use it to add proteins and add calories to every food there is. It's actually called air-based meat, and it is working. So dematerialization applies to every product you have in the city, every service you have in the city. And I just took food because this is the very extreme. I mean, nobody really thinks you can dematerialize food, except that you can. And what happens to the cities if you can dematerialize food? Well, here is a concept of some of the new buildings in the city. Once you can actually use urban farming to create food inside the cities. So we're going to grow more of our own products in the city. And what that means is that the more dematerialization you have, the more a city becomes a unit, an economic and an environmental unit of its own, the less it requires to get from the state that surrounds it. And this is a huge change. And what's more, this is the best thing that could happen for, for the earth. Because when you dematerialize products and services, it means you consume less resources and you produce, obviously, less waste. By the way, guys, feel free to ask questions throughout the lecture. I'm not promising that I can answer all the questions, but I'll try to answer as much as I can. And yeah, Adam, I see what you are saying, that the increase in consumption would mean an increase in consumption of resources. I absolutely agree with you. I mean, that is what everybody thought, except that it turns out that when developed countries actually reach a certain point in their resource consumption, they become so efficient that the consumption goes down. It doesn't mean it has to happen. I mean, right? I mean, people can become gluttons and consume more and more food even though they don't need it. But even in the United States, it's happening. And I don't want to offend anyone, but we all know what's happening in the United States in regards to consumption, especially of food, unfortunately. So this is the first pathway for technological advancement, the pathway of dematerialization. And I want to talk to you in the next, well, about 30 minutes that we have, about two other pathways, about virtualization and artificial intelligence, or integrating a ghost in every machine. Let me show you first what virtualization looks like. Please take a look at this video clip and try to think about all the services that you have in the city. And just 20 years ago, it would have been considered impossible to virtualize them, to move their representation into the virtual world. Well, take a look. So you have mail, You now have Gmail. You used to go to the movie theaters. You now have Netflix. You used to need maps. You remember everybody walking around with maps? You now have Google Maps. You used to go to bookstores. You now have Kindle. You used to go to grocery stores. Now you have Amazon. You used to go to the library. You have Wikipedia now. You can even find rooms and to host you using Airbnb, and so on and so on and so on. Everything is being virtualized, meaning that we take a certain service or product, we create a representation of it in the virtual world, and the virtual world is so much more efficient, so much cheaper than the physical world. And we started virtualizing things long ago. I mean, this is the Encyclopedia Britannica from about 25 years ago. We took an entire encyclopedia with all its volumes, 44 million words, 32 volumes. We virtualized it by moving it into one CD-ROM disk. But that was only the beginning. We then virtualized even the CD and moved storage space to the cloud. You remember that time when our biggest challenge was that we didn't have enough storage space in our hard drive? Well, that's no longer the case. We're storing everything on Google Drive, on Dropbox, in the cloud, on the cloud. How do you hear music today? You remember you used to download all your music to CDs or even to smartphone? You don't need to do it anymore, right? You're using YouTube or you're using Spotify. If you want to do heavy computations, you go to Amazon Web Services. So we are virtualizing more and more and more. And in the virtual world, everything is cheaper, because in the physical world, you need to manipulate atoms. And manipulating atoms, as it turns out, is much more costly and difficult than manipulating bits, computer bits. So you can take any representation of a product or a service to the virtual world and process it and change it. You can take a horse and turn it into a zebra. You can take a president and turn him into a zebra too, if you really have to, but be careful. You don't know how he's going to take it. You can take any kind of image of person that you want and virtualize him or her and actually play with the way they look. So it's even difficult sometimes today to know what's real and what's not. Here, for example, listen to what he has to say.
This is a PSA. You can't believe anything you see these days. These glasses aren't even real. Neither is my face. All this stuff was 3D tracked on using these dots that I drew on with this marker. Actually, the marker isn't real either. Neither is the background, or my face. Have a good night.
It's not easy to understand what's real and what's a fake anymore on the virtual world. And the next step in virtualization is augmented reality. This is Pokemon Go, as I'm sure you know. You can basically go throughout the city and you find Pokemons. You actually see Pokemon running around, you can catch them. So you see an added virtual layer that has been overlaid on the city space. And you can even see it in other games. For example, this is how kids today are playing with dinosaurs. This is my son, by the way. When I was a little kid, I used to play with dinosaur action figures. Today, my son is going out to the city, going out to the wild, and he has this smartphone and the app, Jurassic World Live, and he can see an added layer, a virtual layer with dinosaurs. He can actually collect dinosaurs, look for them in the city. And you know, about a few years ago, he really told me, Dad, we have to go to the synagogue. And I'm like, what? We're an atheist family. But he says, yeah, we have to go to the synagogue. So I say, okay, let's do that. I take him to the synagogue. We enter the synagogue. We meet with the rabbi. And the rabbi says, yes, what can I do for you? And my son says, wait a second. The best dinosaurs are in the synagogue here. So, at least he found some value in synagogues. So again, we're seeing a new layer being integrated with the city. And in this layer, the virtual layer, it's much easier to play with. It's much easier to manipulate than it is to manipulate the physical space in the city. And the most radical virtualization is still ahead of us. This is the virtual reality, which can transform whatever we see into a new virtual reality. This kind of device allows us to go on trips and tours in faraway countries, faraway cities, using advanced virtual simulations. But this is far away in the future. I do want to talk with you today, right now, about the use of AR and VR in cities, because we're already seeing several use cases for AR and VR. AR is augmented reality, VR is virtual reality. So, for example, we can see, AR being used for police work. So, in China, police officers can look at the people and immediately know who needs to be questioned, who needs to be interrogated, and so on. I know that's not always a good thing, but you need to trust the municipality so that the police officers, you can be sure that they are not misusing their new abilities. We're talking about training police officers in augmented reality. So they're ready for every situation. We're talking about training both police officers and municipality workers of all kinds in how certain situations look like from the point of view of the citizens, the residents. And one incredibly touching virtual reality simulation that has been produced is showing police officers and the wide public, general public, what it feels like to be a black man accosted by police officers on the road. Let me show you, and pay attention. You're not the black man sitting in the front seat. You're the little boy sitting in the back and seeing what happens to his dad. Take a look and listen to what it sounds like.
Now, where are you headed again?
Family reunions here.
Tell you what, you behave yourself, and let's do a quick search through your car for narcotics. You'll be right off on your way to your family reunion.
You want to search my car?
Yes, I do.
I do not give you permission to search my car.
Sounds like you got something to hide.
No, by law, you cannot search my car without my permission or without probable cause. It's like we got a lawman partner.
No, take up the judge later. Now, where are you headed again?
Family.
So I'm moving it a little forward.
It's like we got a lawman partner. Military there. But you are free to call my commanding officer. He can tell you everything you need to know. I've got his number.
Hold on.
We told you no sudden movements. Excuse me.
You just stay calm now.
I was just reaching for my phone. Right now.
This is what it looks like.
Watch the dog.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry for showing it to you because this is touching, right? I mean, you actually understand what a little boy feels like under those kinds of circumstances. And the hope is that by showing this to police officers and to municipal workers, we can actually make them understand what it really is like to be confronted by municipal workers of all kinds. We're seeing AR being used for disaster management so that firefighters and other rescue workers and first responders can actually understand what's happening around them, can see who else is coming for the rescue, can see where some people have been discovered under wreckage and and they need to be rescued. We're seeing this kind of VR being used for disaster management. You don't have to take people into a building and create all this complex simulation for them in real life. Instead, you're training them in VR, so they know exactly what to do when things like this actually happen in the physical world. And there are also educational uses, and I think everybody knows about them, right? I mean, there are plenty of apps like this. You go to the Colosseum in Italy, in Rome, and you hold your tablet or you hold your smartphone, and you get explanations about what's happening, yeah, about what it used to be like. You get education, yeah, in the city in real time. But what's even more interesting is not just for the tourists who want to learn more about the city, but that citizens in the city, residents in the cities, can actually take part in urban planning. For example, in one of the cities, when the municipality wanted to rebuild the park there, well, the municipality invited the residents to take part in the planning process. And the residents proposed some ideas, an architect modeled them in real time, showed them on the screen, and then those participants could actually look at the new park in virtual reality. So they could feel like they are moving around in the park and really understand what their decisions look like in the end. We're seeing VR being used for recruiting employees because, for example, the Department of Child Services in Indiana suffered from a very, very high rate of employees turnover. It cost them $72 million a year. Why? Because the newcomers to the job were not prepared for how difficult it is, to get to homes and to appraise what the kids are feeling like, to confront their parents. Because let me tell you, when the Department of Child Services needs to help kids, this is not what the kids are look like. So they created a simulation, a VR simulation that demonstrated to potential workers what the job really looks like. And as a result, there wasn't as many candidates for the job. But those who did get accepted stayed there for much longer. So the simulation actually reduced the employee turnover, from 50% to only 19% a year. That's huge. And finally, tourism. And I want to talk about tourism because it shows us something very important about virtual reality and augmented reality. This is the Bowery Wall in New York City. It's a huge wall that over the past several decades received many graffiti murals on it. And each of them came on top of the others. So basically, when you come to the wall, you can only see one graffiti, but you can see the history of the wall, all the other graffitis that used to be on the wall, all the other artworks, all the other creations that used to be on this wall. And the amazing thing is that, yeah, we can show people this all these graffitis at the same time. But if you wanted to do that same kind of thing in the physical world, we would have needed dozens of walls like this. And that's pretty almost impossible to do in cities with a large population. But in the virtual world, yes, we can add all these walls, because in the virtual world, you don't suffer from a real limitation on space. And this new capability to reshape the virtual world of public space being overlaid on the public space is raising some very disturbing questions. Because what are the rules about virtual spaces? Let me give you an example what I'm talking about. When Pokemon Go was at the peak of its success, there was a certain area on the road that started suffering from traffic congestion throughout the day. And they couldn't figure out why. I mean, the road is completely straight. Why are cars slowing down in a section of the road? Well, it turned out that there was a Pokestop there. And people used to slow down so they could, swipe on the smartphone screen. And if you think about it in a different way, the company behind Pokemon Go, Niantic, actually placed a stop sign at that point. A stop sign, or a slow down sign, or make an accident sign, depending on how you think about it. So actually, firms that are creating virtual spaces that are being overlaid on public spaces receive a huge power. They can redirect traffic. They can attract or repulse people to certain areas. They can increase or lower the value of certain assets and so on. And we need to consider what will the balance be between municipalities and AR firms. Because the power to, the authority to install traffic signs, traffic lights, roads, has always been reserved to the municipality. And for a very good reason, too. It's a huge responsibility. One wrong sign can make the lives of thousands of people living hell. But in the virtual world, every person, every firm can direct residents at amazing ease. So the municipalities are going to have to discover a new balance in the coming decade between the firms that create AR virtual spaces and the municipalities themselves. And it's not inconceivable to think about a situation in which a municipality demands that a certain company does not open a Pokestop near kindergartens so as not to distract drivers. I think that's only reasonable. But that's a new kind of balance that needs to be struck between municipalities and virtual AR firms. And the final pathway that I want to talk about is that of the ghost in the machine, that of AI, of integrating AI into every product, every service, every technology. And let me show you right away the technology that everybody is talking about. Pay attention.
Good morning, Eric.
Yes, good morning. Let's go.
What is your destination today, Eric?
Destination is work, just like every day. Go, start driving.
Would you prefer the standard way?
No, I prefer you take me through China.
China is 15,000 miles from here. Loading maps and alternative language.
No, abort.
Aborting trip to work. What is your destination today, Eric?
Please, I am begging you, just take me to work.
Engaging climate control systems.
No, enough with the climate control. Just drive.
Sensing nerves level rising. Activating relaxation music.
No, I just want to drive.
It might be your last chance to drive. Alfa Romeo Giulia,
yeah, so if you can buy yourself an Alfa Romeo Giulia, sure, I really recommend that car. I wish I could buy it for myself. But while the commercial is amusing, its lessons are valuable. Autonomous cars are on their way to our cities. They are going to appear everywhere. They're already starting to make an appearance. I know that in Providence, Rhode Island, for example, where I resided for several years, in the last year, they actually started having autonomous shuttles moving along the road. We're actually seeing cars like Tesla car being, driving itself, really. while the driver is sleeping at the wheel. And just imagine what it feels like for the people driving next to this car who don't know how this car is going to behave, don't know what to do. So everybody is talking about autonomous cars. But even more important than that, we're starting to see sophisticated robots making their way to our streets. And many people make fun of robots. They say they're cumbersome, they're awkward, they don't walk right. And there is much truth to it. But things are starting to change because AI is moving forward at exponential speed. It's basically doubling its capabilities every 2 years. And let me show you what it means to advance in exponential pace. I want to show you the robots from 2014, the most sophisticated and advanced robots that there were at that year, and that DARPA, that huge security department of the government in the United States, wanted those companies to demonstrate. Take a look at those robots. You can laugh at them. I mean, they are pretty ridiculous. So that's what robots looked like just 6 years ago. And this now is what robots look like at the end of 2020. I'm moving it a little forward, but it is so much fun to watch this, because I know how difficult it is to make robots do all those things. Okay, so those are the robots by Boston Dynamics, and they are doing some pretty amazing things. We're talking about another robot like Spot that can actually plant things just like a gardener would. So many new robots are coming into our streets. We're talking about delivery robots on wheels. We're talking not just about ground robots, but also aerial robots in the air, like these aerial drones that recently received authorization to deliver gifts, to deliver packages, drugs, snacks to the citizens of Virginia. We're talking about aerial drones like Zipline that delivered more than 70,000 packages in Rwanda. And I'm not saying that everything is perfect right now. Obviously, there are plenty of issues that we need to tackle. But we are seeing how the robot market is developing. And right now, it's growing at a pace of 49.5% every year. Again, it means the market value is doubling every 2 years. That's huge. And we are going to see robots in our cities very, very quickly now, because you don't need new infrastructure for the robots to really work with. Instead, the new robots are going to use the existing infrastructure, maybe not in exactly the same way, but they are going to use the existing infrastructure. Autonomous cars are going to use the same roads. The robots with legs are going to use the pavement, and so on. So we know what robots are going to do, but we're also seeing AI optimizing efficiencies in the roads by getting information from thousands of sensors or for smartphones, and as a result, optimizing traffic lights activity. We're seeing digital twins, basically an AI-based simulation of the infrastructure in the city. It allows us to predict in advance when you're going to have a problem, some kind of an issue with the infrastructure in the physical world. So you know when you need to repair bridges, roads, buildings in advance. We're seeing AI being used for cybersecurity because we're talking about virtual reality, we're talking about sensors. Don't forget about security. AI is starting to provide us with security as well. And finally, we're talking about automating entire processes. And this is called hyper-automation, taking several AI engines and robots and putting them all together to automate an entire process. For example, here's what a large bank recently did with hyper-automation, but this can also be enacted in every department of the municipality. Let's say that a bank wants to process claims, so it receives a receipt, either in email or letter form. The receipt is scanned automatically, including handwriting recognition. We can easily do that today. The data is being verified with other systems. So has the supplier really done his or her work? Does he or she really deserve to get the money? And finally, the machine assesses its confidence level. And this is something that is incredibly difficult for human beings to do. We're usually very arrogant. We believe that we are doing just fine. But what we are seeing is that the machine can actually accurately assess its confidence level. And if it's not confident enough in its insights, then the decision goes to a human being. If it is confident, the process continues automatically and the machine transfers the money to the supplier. Consider just how much this could optimize the processes in every department. And by the way, we see that in that bank, that kind of hyper-automation scheme could actually do the work of 230 full-time workers and only cost 1/3 the money, and actually did it better than human beings. There was a 27% rise in claims handled well the first time. We're seeing AI being used for customer service. For example, in Mississippi, you have a chatbot called Missy that can answer more than 100 questions by city residents. In Los Angeles, you have a similar chatbot. But the real future is that of smart avatars. And this person that you see here, this isn't a real human being. It's a computerized avatar. This is a human being, but the ones on the screens are actually avatars that can provide customer service to anyone who connects through Zoom with the municipality. And we're already seeing computers that can have almost perfect conversations with human beings and provide great customer service. We're not quite there yet. We're going to get there within the next couple of years. And even now, we're seeing value in those avatars. And it's so easy to create those avatars. It's so easy to provide a better customer service, a more personalized interaction with your customers. Let me show you how easy it is. Here, I created an avatar specifically for you. I call her Cynthia. Cynthia, you can talk. You can start talking now.
Thank you, Rowie, for inviting me here today. I have just one message for the participants of SME for Smart Cities. Don't wait. Use AI today. Back to your Rowie, and have a wonderful day.
Yeah, she really knows what she's talking about, even if she's a little biased. So, guys, I wanted to summarize. Where are we heading to now? What should you do now with all those wonderful inventions and pathways that I talked to you about? And just to summarize, we talked about dematerialization, producing more from less. And we talked about food production in the city, in urban centers. But you can apply that to every kind of product or service that we can think of. Dematerialization means that the city is now in the center of everything. It needs less resources from the outside. You become less dependent on the state. And that's a huge revolution in their relationships between cities and nation states. We talked about virtualization of services, virtualization of physical spaces. So you get more actual space in cities, even though the physical space stays the same. We talked about AI, about having every service, every area in the city under supervision, connected, working the best way it could. We're talking about people receiving the best kind of customer service they can, and also of municipalities being as efficient as they can be. So where are we heading to now? What's going to happen with all those technologies? And are they going to be implemented in cities all over the world? Well, as Peter Drucker said, that's up to you, because the best way to predict the future is to create it. You can now take this knowledge to your cities, to your municipalities, and consider how to implement it as best as possible. And I just want to let Cynthia conclude this lecture.
Thanks for listening. SME for Smart Cities. Remember what's important: dematerialization, virtualization, and AI. Good luck implementing those in your cities.
Good luck to you in implementing those in your cities, and thank you for listening to me throughout this lecture. Thank you so much. And yeah, Tal, back to you.
Thank you, Roy. This was certainly a lot to take in and very important. And on to our next speaker, Dr. Orly Ronen. Orly is the head of the Urban Innovation and Sustainability Lab at the Porter School of Tel Aviv University, our partner in the SMEs for Smart Cities project. Orly will present the thematic context of the project, Cities as Change Agents for Sustainability and Innovation.
Hi, Tal. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, everybody. And actually, I hate to come up right after Roy because his lecture was so optimistic, and mine is going to be a sort of putting a damp on the optimism. But we'll begin in a second. Just let me see. Can you see my presentation? Yes. Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to lay the context today for our project in general, and really put the infrastructure for what it is that we want to change, and what our insights were from our research, which will be presented by the speakers following me. So as I said, my presentation will build the context for our project. Our basic premise is that we live in a rapidly changing world with enormous challenges and opportunities, like Roy said. Climate change and urbanization are shaping the Mediterranean region in the 21st century. And as you can see, if we think it's hot now, it's going to get much hotter in the coming years. I'd like to share this short animation with you just to give you a context of what it is that we're facing and the environment that we're working with. This short animation demonstrates the change in climate the world is experiencing since 1880 till 2017. And as you can see, the project countries are circled in green. The bigger and redder the circle gets, the change in climate is towards heating. The bluer and larger it gets, the change in climate is towards cooling. But as you can see, we're already in the 21st century. The color is getting redder and louder, or the circles are getting definitely larger and larger for all the project partners and for all the Mediterranean area. No doubt something is definitely changing. Many researchers are studying these changes, offering extensive interpretations of what is really happening. One of the key analyses that is looking at the key trends for the past 250 years is the one developed by the Great Transition project. And they looked at different trends depicting human development since the Industrial Revolution. As you can see, these trends depict various areas since 1750, more or less the Industrial Revolution, till 2010, more or less nowadays, the beginning of the 21st century. And as I review these different trends, I will be looking at different aspects of human development. And I invite you to see if you can see what is the common denominator for all these trends. So this is the rise in world population, the rise in GDP, the rise in primary energy use, large dams, water use, paper production, transportation, telecommunications, international tourism, and on the other hand, from the planetary perspective, the rise in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the rise in surface temperature. So as we look at these different trends back and forth, on the one hand, human development, on the other hand, the reaction, the planetary reaction, what we can do is that we're getting two clear pictures. One is the socioeconomic trends or the development trends, and the other is the Earth system trends. And as you can see, they're both very similar. They're very similar as to their curves, and they're very similar as to their timeline. They're beginning more or less, the great acceleration begins more or less in the 1950s following the Second World War. The enormous impact of human development on the planet is not gradually, but is making itself present. And the curve is accelerating exponentially as it reaches the 21st century. They identified 4 megatrends emerging from these various trends in the various sectors. One is environmental degradation. The second is technology and innovation. The third, rise in population and economic growth, which we saw in the first 2 graphs. And the fourth, inequality, both global inequality between the North and the South, but also in-country inequality, both within cities and within countries. And as we look at these trends, I would like to emphasize 2 specific aspects. One, the rise in temperature, which we saw, and the rise in urban population. Cities are becoming a global actor. They're changing the human environment. These 4 numbers, I think, emphasize these 2 aspects. 3% of the land of the planet is urbanized. That's not a lot, but take into consideration that most of the population is already living on this land in cities. We've become an urban population for the first time ever. About 8 years ago, we crossed the 50% line, meaning that most of us live in cities. And while we're living in cities, we create most of the economic activity of the world, but also we produce most of the world's greenhouse gases and contribute to the climate change. So as we're looking at these numbers, it becomes obvious to us that solutions need to be suited for cities and need to emerge from cities. In the 21st century, the city is becoming the key development engine. Yes, the ecological system is definitely heavily impacted by human activity, and climate change is changing our life. But innovation is becoming a local, decentralized engine, as we will see, and as I think Roy demonstrated in his presentation. First, let's look at the urban challenges facing cities in the 21st century. And they're varied. It's not only climate-related challenges, but there are challenges relating to society. There are challenges relating to populations, to transportation, to air pollution, to the way we conduct our industry, definitely flooding, disparity between populations, poverty, again, air pollution all over the world, refugees from Syria flooding the streets of Paris, of Vienna, seeking a different and a better life. And yes, as we're facing these challenges, there's one thing that we can see clearly. Creativity is going to be one of our mainstays for solutions. Urban well-being is being more and more equal to resilience. Cities have to overcome challenges and become resilient in order to become good cities and provide well-being for their residents. We're talking a lot about urban resilience in the past 2 decades or so. So what is resilience? It is the ability of a system to revive after shock. Once a shock hits any system, the system will experience some sort of collapse, of deterioration, and then it will begin to recover. A key question is whether it will strive to recover to exactly the same place it was before the shock hit it, or whether it will learn from the situation and improve its capability to contend with a potential next shock. And when the next shock comes, the next challenge, is it going to fall to the same place it did last time, or is it going to recover much quickly and experience less impact? The ability of a city to develop resilience relies on its ability to develop the capabilities to absorb future shocks and stresses that are going to affect social, economic, technological, and infrastructure systems, but to return to providing the same and potentially improved services, structures, system, and identity. We're talking a lot about recovery from the COVID crisis, but we're beginning to realize more and more that the recovery may also be an opportunity to provide possibly better life and better well-being in our cities. And this is where the concept of green growth comes in. How can we create a new environment, an environment that is better suited to confront both the climate and the environmental crisis, but also potentially other crises, whether health or economical crisis? And as we're looking at these aspects, we're focusing on the Mediterranean perspective. The Mediterranean has been identified as one of the world's hotspots for climate change. According to the 2015 IPCC report, the Mediterranean region is in fact ranked second as the world hotspot for climate change. And also, it is one of the top ranking regions for urbanization. In fact, from 1970 to 2010, urbanization around the Mediterranean has increased from 54% to 66% and is continuing to grow. So we're also in our area, we're seeing these two trends coming together. On the one hand, the environmental and climate crisis. On the other hand, the cities becoming a more and more key and central actor in the policy arena and in the development arena. And these are some more data from the World Bank report of 2011, which also identified the impact of climate change on Mediterranean cities. And as you can see, some of the cities will experience loss of more than $1 billion US dollars by 2030, temperature increase of more than 2,000% is predicted for the Mediterranean region in this century. And obviously the understanding that every dollar invested in adaptation will save $8 in recovery and reparations. In another study of 885 European cities, which looked at their climate plans, their climate strategies, something that is more concerning arises. If you see, most of the Mediterranean cities are depicted as cities with mitigation plans only, except for France, where cities are obligated to produce combined mitigation and adaptation plans. Most of the cities are in the first stage of producing climate strategies. And in fact, what we can see in large based on this study is that climate and sustainability is not mainstreamed into urban policy in most of the cities of the Mediterranean. And this is why we, in our project, SME for Smart Cities, are focusing on the Mediterranean region, in particular Spain, Italy, Israel, and the Palestinian Authority, looking for ways to bring together, on the one hand, the challenge of environment and climate change, but on the other hand, the immense opportunities of innovation and smart cities, because we can see that change is critical. Our cities are facing flooding and fires, but we know more and more that change is possible. There are beautiful, brilliant examples from all over the world and all over the region. This is from Milan. This is from Barcelona. This is from Tel Aviv. And change is not only critical, possible, but it's also absolutely rewarding. It's the ability to create a better life in addressing the crisis. For instance, this is the city of Jerusalem, the main street in 2005, and this is the same street nowadays, 2021 actually. And you can see the immense difference in quality of life, in pollution, in livability, in walkability. These examples are appearing in our cities all over the region. This is from Barcelona. This is from Kfar Saba, a green school, solar roofs. We already have the understanding and the knowledge how to turn our cities from cities where petrol and fossil fuels are the drivers of development. They supply food, energy, transportation, and deline the social order, but we already know how to turn them into these eco policies that can produce food, energy, transportation based on a different perspective, strategy, and social order. And in order to do this, we need to develop potential collaborations with the other stakeholders in the city, whether they're residents or whether they're businesses or small enterprises or startups, because that's where the creativity is being nurtured and is growing. So we need to enable our cities to be better equipped for this changing environment with the ability to engage and join with different stakeholders, specifically stakeholders from the new innovation and smart ecosystem, so we can produce a better synergy between environment, economy, and our cities to ensure future well-being in face of the coming crisis, but also in face of the coming opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Orly. I'm looking for the words to describe this overwhelming and terrifying speech you just gave. It was absolutely...
But also optimistic.
Optimistic, but we all, most of us in the audience are municipal workers and we have so much on our shoulders. So I hope this is the good stage to step into our practicality of the project. I'm going to move the microphone to Mr. Avigdor Sharon. He's a researcher at the Urban Innovation and Sustainability Lab at the Porter School of Tel Aviv University. Avigdor has a multidisciplinary experience in studying and developing work, learning, and living spaces to achieve well-being and resilience. Avigdor is part of our working team, and he will present the Urban Challenges Study and the Procurement Trend Guide we have completed for the use of municipalities and SMEs seeking to tap into innovative solutions. So to you.
Okay, thank you very much. It was amazing to listen to all those wonderful keynotes and discussions. And I would like to present the research that we have done together, our laboratory together with all the partners from the participating countries and cities in this project. The first is the Urban Challenges Survey that we have conducted. By the way, this is our building, the building of the Porter School at Tel Aviv University, overlooking the city of Tel Aviv. And it is a multidisciplinary graduate school for PhD and master's students. As Orly just elaborated, the Mediterranean area is a hotspot for climate change. And you can actually see here on my screen, you can see part of the IPCC report, which describes the possible impacts of climate change on the Mediterranean region and Mediterranean cities. 2 years ago, Christiana Figueras, which was head of the United Nations Committee for Climate Change, she spoke about those issues of climate change, both the issues that we need to solve and the big opportunities, which there is so much optimism ahead, but to do so, we need to overcome some barriers. So here is our study. We went to check if cities are ready for urban innovation and environmental innovation, to see which solutions they have already applied and where there are barriers, and to find out together with the cities how we can resolve them. So that was, this study was led in 4 languages across the Mediterranean, from southern Spain to southern Israel, and officials from 34 cities have participated. You can see the distribution of the cities. Some of the cities are large, 100,000 residents or even more. Other cities are medium-sized, and we really got a amazing variety and many insights from those participating cities. Here are in brief some of the things that we have learned. You see that cities face issues and they are aware to it in multiple domains: mobility, urban nature. Actually, it was interesting to note that the cities spoke about urban nature more than they spoke about air pollution or energy. And you see all those topics that they have described. But then it was interesting to note that when we talked about initiatives and actual solutions, many cities have actually took a lead in sustainable energy, which means cities know how to tackle the issue of energy. Not only they are aware, but they are installing solar facilities actually everywhere and are on the way to be self-sustained. But in other areas, transportation, nature, air quality, there is so much to do, and there is a big gap between the awareness and the issues and what cities actually achieved. So we know there are barriers and there is a gap. What are the barriers? This is what we found in the study. It might not be surprising that the biggest barrier is funding, financing, economic, then municipal bureaucracy, technological know-how, because cities speak a certain language. It's the language of the civil organizations, of the management of organizations and public services, but they don't really speak enough the language of technology. So we have a gap of language between organizational language and innovation language. And there are other issues as well, such as organizational culture, but note that the big issue is about capacity. It's not about infrastructure, for example. And can cities work with SMEs and startups to implement innovative ideas? Are they open to work with startups, or maybe they would prefer just to work with the established big corporations? Overwhelmingly, there are no barriers to work with SMEs. Just a few issues of legislation, resources, corporate culture, but that's in the edges. Most cities have issues of, as we just saw, funding, know-how, but no psychological barriers. And these are the key factors that the city officials articulated. And you can see the barriers. Note that they spoke about the need to have the city mayor and CEO leadership, which is so important. They need to have a vision. And then to fulfill this vision, there is a need for a municipal team that is professional and that is across the board. They explicitly talked about collaboration. Collaboration within the municipality, collaboration with the public and private sector, which includes collaboration with small companies and entrepreneurs, and citizen engagement, which you can also see on the right side. So I will not read this, but it will all be published and available online. We have openness, we have seen gaps, and we know what are the gaps, and therefore how we can solve them. Communication, collaboration, fueled by political will and leadership, and assisted by an integrated professional municipal team. collaboration is important, both in the municipalities and collaboration between SMEs, because SMEs can collaborate together to create clusters, shared services that will be good and easy for cities to implement. Now I would like to show to you another deliverable of our research, and that was the study of municipal procurement trends, and that was led by Kfar Saba municipality, assisted by all the partners. This document is available to you on the internet. I'm not showing a presentation, I'm showing the live internet site, and you can all get the link and just scroll and read this paper of the municipal trend guides. You see the chapters, so you have an executive summary and discussions about smart innovation, green procurement, examples with links. This is a very interactive, dynamic document that you can scroll, read, and link to see, and click on the links to see the examples. And you will see the richness of opportunities, but also the complexity of processes, such as tenders. At the bottom of this guide, you have this button. You see those small button at the bottom, which takes you to the table of contents, so you can easily swap through the chapters. And if you want to read the entire city, the entire story, you can click about any of the topics. And for example, read about tender laws. You see this detailed chapter with information about laws in specific countries, such as Italy, and examples. Each one of these examples, you can, for example, you can click here to go to the Malaga website, or to go to the Murcia website, and or to Genova, or any other example. Or you might wish to jump. Yeah, some people like to read the entire story. Some people would like to go to the end and see who is the villain. So here are the recommendations, and you can go to these chapters of recommendation. Now, this guide is meant for SMEs. We also have an additional guide for municipal procurement leaders. It's just a different link, but it's mostly the same, with just a few changes that are appropriate for the viewpoint of municipalities. For example, if I click on recommendations, I will go to recommendations for local authorities, while the other version of the guide showed you recommendation for SMEs. Okay, so thank you very much, and I hope you read and enjoy those deliverables.
Thank you so much, Avigdor. This was, of course, very interesting, and of course, thank you for the help with the production of the Procurement Trend Guide, which we really believe is a good tool that people in municipalities and SMEs can use to promote green procurement. And we will continue with the Procurement Trend Guide, specifically focusing on green procurement aspects compiled by Avi Blau. Avi is our next speaker. He's an industrial engineer, director of Afeka Institution for Circular Engineering and Community and Economy. Ooh, I'm getting it all mixed up, Avi, I'm sorry. And a senior sustainability consultant to the Israeli Government Procurement Agency. Avi, the screen is yours.
Hi, Tal, and good morning to you all. Thanks a lot for the opportunity to speak. So, as Tal introduced me, I'm the head of the Institute for Circular Engineering and Economy at Tel Aviv Afeka College of Engineering, and I work as the consultant to the Israeli Government Procurement Agency. And what I would like to do today is to share with you some ideas and tips on how to do green innovation procurement on the municipal level. So I usually start my presentations on procurement with slides like this, which show us that in every bad thing that happens, there is usually some procurement involved. Somebody's buying the least effective solutions, the energy polluting, the air polluting solutions. And we need to think about that because we have a role and a responsibility as procurement officials in everything that we see in our cities. On the other hand, there's also the ability or the responsibility of procurement officials to buy the right stuff. So to convert your city into 100% renewably based or energy efficient based or water efficiency based and whatnot. So we play with those two sides of the balance. What do we do that's part of the problem and what do we do that's part of the solution? And when we talk about innovation procurement or innovation, we can see that it's already been introduced and referred to in the procurement directive. So even from 2014, we already see a trend towards innovation in the procurement directive, and you see that it's defined as means, as innovation means the implementation of new or significantly improved product, service, or process with the purpose of helping to solve societal challenges. So we know what innovation means, and we know what green innovation means. That's taking us towards the directions of the SDGs, for example. Now, a very common perception of innovation is that this is something that happens in the private sector, right? We as procurers, we buy innovative solutions, but the innovation takes place at the private sector, and our role as public bodies may be to support education, fund universities, support R&D. But I think, and it's not just me, that think that we have also a role as leading innovation through procurement. And it's been stated very clearly already in 2011 by the OECD when they call it demand-side innovation policies. So we can, in fact, use the power of the public procurement to pool demand. So to increase the desirability of companies, of the private sector to invest in innovation through the fact that we are creating a signaling effect to the market by saying that this is what we want. So why do green innovation procurement? First of all, and it might surprise you, it can actually save money. When we look at the life cycle cost, we might, not necessarily have to spend more when we purchase the product or the service, but usually when it's green, it's usually more efficient in consuming consumables or in its electricity consumption or in the cost of landfilling it, because there'll be less to landfill or because it will have no hazardous materials. So when you look at the life cycle cost, often you actually can save money. Another reason is that we have the ability to make sure that the city complies with environmental regulation by regulatory means. So we can enforce compliance, and that's effective to a limit. With green innovation procurement, we can actually reach those goals through market mechanisms. So instead of enforcing, I can just say, I prefer buying this solution. So use market mechanisms to get to the goals that the city wants to reach. Of course, this is, you can lead the market. So when all other stakeholders are still concerned, still not sure whether to buy this new solution, we as public bodies can take the risk and can show market leadership. Sometimes it would better answer our needs. So we are used to buying the same stuff with some improvements from year to year, but maybe this doesn't really answer our actual needs. Maybe we can create a better solution by working with the market on innovative solutions, and I'll show you 3 examples of how to do that. this is, of course, will boost green innovation in the market. This will create for each one of us an expansion of our work spectrum. So maybe it's also interesting, just professionally, to start looking also at innovative solutions and to start looking at green solutions on a day-to-day basis when we show up to work. And of course, this is good publicity for the political level if we do innovative stuff, especially green innovative stuff in a municipality. But having said that, and that's my day-to-day life, we know that there are many barriers to green innovative procurement. First of all, it complicates the process. There are legal issues that we have to deal with. There might be cost issues that we have to deal with. It might increase the price. There might be issues of limiting the number of available suppliers, because once we start demanding new innovative criteria in our tender, we might limit the number of bidders, and that's never a desired consequence. We're not sure that there are going to be any solutions, so we may want this this barrier in the picture to be electrically operated, but maybe nobody's manufacturing it. I mentioned that the third bullet point as a barrier, but of course this is also an advantage. But in the barrier perspective, we sometimes are afraid to buy from SMEs. Why? Because we're concerned that SMEs might not be able to offer maintenance or to offer support when our municipality is large and spread geographically. So this is a concern. There are, of course, solutions to that, but we have to recognize that this is a concern. If we don't have political support, that's definitely a major barrier, especially if we need to spend some more. There is the perception that it costs more, perception that needs to be always checked because it's not always right. And maybe the biggest barrier is that we as procurement officials are not environmental experts. So there is almost a psychological barrier to even try to start with dealing with issues, because it seems like a very distant, non-related topic that we are not even professionally capable of handling. And also, small municipalities often think that they are too small to make an impact, and it won't change anything if we ask for these innovative solutions in our tender. This is perceived as a risk. Innovative procurement is perceived as a risk. Will they be able to supply on time? How much would it cost? Sometimes we are buying innovation that doesn't exist in the market yet, and even the provider doesn't know how to price their product. So we are not sure where we're going with an innovative procurement tender. And then there is this issue of performance, and how do we define the performance criteria of the solution we are looking for, because it's an innovative solution. Nobody has done that before. Nobody bought that before. The product is sometimes not even on the market. How do we define before the tender that this is a solution that addresses our needs? But you have to remember that there are also risks on the supplier side. So suppliers are often able to deal with technological risks and with financial risks, but it's really difficult for them to develop a new solution when they are unsure if there's going to be any demand. Is anybody interested in this solution? And even if there is a demand, even if they met you and they heard that, yeah, you could be interested, how big is the demand? How many lines do they need to convert to the new solution in order to supply possible future needs? And these are risks that often prevent, especially SMEs, from going in this direction of innovative R&D. So when we talk about innovation procurement, we have to realize that this is a tool that tries to answer those market failures that I just discussed. So if there's risk on the side of the supplier, there's risk and fear on our side, how do we tackle them? And we tackle them through the tools of innovation procurement. It is also a way to switch from being an administrative role of getting specifications from various departments and issuing the best tender that will give the best value for money, into another tool in the array of the municipality to reach environmental goals or to reach its general policy goals. So through procurement, innovation procurement, and mainly demand side led innovation procurement. So through procurement, we define what's going to be on the market. We are helping our city to reach its environmental goals. But for sure, this is something that requires us as municipalities to leave our comfort zone. So this is not the same as before. This is not more of the same. This is not doing tenders and hoping to get something that might be also sustainable. This requires market dialogue. This requires engaging with suppliers, and this requires doing things that we are not so used to. And of course, there is the vicious cycle of we are not doing green innovation because there are no market solutions. But of course, you realize that it's a vicious cycle. We're not doing, there are no market innovations because we're not asking for that. So who should break this chicken and egg problem? I think this is us. I think this is us that can take the risk first and start demanding these things in our tenders so that there will be an interest for innovators to enter the market and offer us these solutions. So just to know, we don't have to, when we speak about innovation, we automatically start thinking about radical innovation or really changing everything, changing all the technologies, everything that we know of in order to fix the environmental solutions. So there's that, and that's very interesting, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. There's also the incremental innovation, how to do the same things, just like we discussed at the beginning, decoupling the environmental impact from the economic impact. So doing the same things with less environmental impact. And let's get practical. Let's start seeing how do we do those things. So a few very strategic tips. First, and very, very important, is to start early. If you try to integrate innovative green procurement, 4 months before the tender is supposed to be on the air, it's too late. Nobody will have the patience. The legal department won't have the ability to support it. It's too late. You won't even know if you will have any bidders that can answer the tender. So it's something to start even a year and a half or two before the tender, and then start researching and understanding the entire value chain of the relevant solutions that you are intending to procure. Even if they don't exist on the market yet, at least know the business environment of the area that you are trying to procure from. And consult. Don't be afraid to ask for professional, sometimes external consultancy. If this is green innovation, then green consulting. If it's smart city innovation, then other experts, but use this knowledge. And importantly, don't expect the supplier to take all the risk on themselves. So don't show up saying, yeah, we'll be here in 2 years. If you are able to show a solution, we'll issue a tender and maybe you win. That's very hard to win like that because the risk is too much for the suppliers, especially SMEs. So I wanted to show 3 main tools that exist for green innovative procurement. There are many more, but these ones I found to be both used already and very popular. So first one is what's called PPI, the Public Procurement of Innovative Solution. And that we use when the solution is very near to the market, in small quantities. We really need to give a push in order for this to become cheaper and in order for this to become profitable for manufacturers. And we do that by being a launch customer. So we take the risk, we are the first. Sometimes we group together a group of municipalities and we offer a tender for something that's new, that's novel, exists on the market, but really hasn't been integrated into public procurement because, again, we are used to buying the more of the same. So that's the first tool. The second tool is called pre-commercial procurement. And in pre-commercial procurement, we use that, for example, when no knowledge exists on how to solve the problem. So we know what our problem is. There are no products on the market. There's not even technical know-how how to fix the problem. So we procure the R&D. We don't procure the product, we procure the R&D. Example, we are in Israel, for example, we are really interested in having a robot that will go from one parking lot to another to charge the electric vehicles. But we don't have yet a battery large enough that could be mounted on a robot that could maneuver between cars and charge several cars. It just doesn't exist yet. So if we wanted to have such a product, we can't launch a tender for such a product. We have to launch a tender for the R&D, for the technological innovation that would enable to put such a large battery capacity on a small robot. Another tool that we have, the third tool, is the forward commitment to procurement. And in a forward commitment to procurement, we basically tell the supplier, if you are able to bring to us a product that complies with those specs that we have defined, within 2 years, within 3 years, we commit to offer you a tender with a value of X, 3 million euros. Doesn't matter. So we give the manufacturer or the innovator the guarantee to go and invest in the research and development, because they know that they will have a sure tender at the end of the line. But this requires market engagement. This requires talking to suppliers. This requires the understanding of what is possible and what they can provide us with, so that we can craft the right tender. I wanted to do a quick quiz to see if you understood which tool to use in which situation. But we, since there's no chat and I can't see your answers, you're just going to get the slides at the end and see the answers. So for each situation, there is a strategy that fits, and you can go and use each one of those strategies. But to finalize 2 slides, what can you do? So first, I would just put a goal. Let's have one innovation procurement process in 2021. Then I would have an innovation team together with sustainability consultants. They could be the environmental department, they could be external, to get political support and run this process. It's very effective to allocate percentage of the procurement budget to innovative procurement, because then you have a goal and you just need to feel it. You can collaborate with adjacent cities. This creates a bigger procurement power for you to be more interesting to innovators. Get assistance from either regional or national or even European level innovation agencies that can help you design the tender. Let the market know. That's what I said. Start 2 years before the tender. Let the market know what you're interested in. Let the market expect your tender and start working towards your tender, and dialogue with the suppliers. This is something we're not used to, but this is critical in order to develop innovative procurement. Lastly, like an example, we used to have these kinds of beer carriers, and this was their results, until somebody came up with this innovative solution of why not have the same functionality, but made out of animal or food that marine animal can eat. So it still functions as beer carrier, but it doesn't create the same damage. And this is now already, we can see on existing products. So think innovatively. This is not just the market that innovates, it's also us that can demand innovation. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you so much, Avi. That was very interesting. You managed to pinprick the exact challenges that we are going through in the municipality in this respect. And for everyone who wants to learn more about your thoughts, you've obviously helped us create the procurement trend guide, and everyone can read it and find full extended knowledge about all that you've been describing. So thank you very much for being with us today. We are almost at the end of our webinar, and I'm going to give the screen back to Avigdor for a short interactive discussion using Kahoot. Avigdor?
Hi. Okay, so let's have a discussion, but let's have the discussion in an innovative way. Let's just play a game. That will be fun. It will be informative. I will show you how to join the game in a minute. Just a sec. So what you need to do is take out your smartphones. While you watch my screen, my shared screen in here, you will see some guidelines how to register to an online game. Okay, you need to go to that web address, kahoot.it. You see kahoot.it on your mobile phone, and then you will have a box to type in the game number. So here's the number 6823914. When you join the game, we will see you as players on the screen. You will see the questions on my screen, and you will reply to them using colored squares on your mobile phone. So log in, everybody, and let's start the game. Okay. Should I wait some more for more people to join? We just wait 1 more minute and then we start. Okay, remember, open kahoot.it on your smartphones in the browser and type in the game number. Okay, excellent. So, I can't hear if anyone is still trying to register, so I will start and I hope everyone are in. Let's start. Now, you will see the question and the 4 answers for each question on my screen. Some questions are multi-select, so you can choose more than one option. So, how will people commute in your city 10 years from now? You have 4 options, and each one has a corresponding color. Red is using moving sidewalks. Blue is electric vehicles. You need to click the rectangle and then click on submit. At the bottom of the screen on your smartphone, you have a submit button to submit the answers. Okay, so that was the first question. 3 people go through. You will see how it works. Okay, so we have 2 replies here. Let's go to the next one. Okay, that's our scoreboard. Second question, again multi-select. What is the air quality in your city? Look at my screen, choose one of the options, and then on your smartphone, click the colored square and hit the submit button at the bottom. Okay, nice. We are moving ahead. Fantastic. That's very good. Let's see our new scoreboard. Nice. Third question. Again, this is a multi-select. So remember, after you click the colored squares, hit the submit button at the bottom of the squares. Now, even if you live at a city, you don't manage a city, choose a strategy to manage waste. Okay, nice. So we prefer to collect and recycle as the first option. Interesting. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, this is a really intense competition here in the scoreboard. Fourth question. Is there really a climate issue in cities? What do you think? So most people agree that there is, and we are working to fix it. Fantastic. Question number 5, there are only 7 questions. Who is responsible to initiate action to mitigate climate change? Red, the government. Blue, the local authorities. Yellow, the citizens. And green, we must all work together. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So we all agreed that we need to work together. Whatever the problem, collaboration is the solution. As Edna Pesher is always saying. Next question. Does climate change affect life in the city? Or maybe not? Interesting insights. Let's see where we stand. We have one more question to go, and that's the last one. Does your city nurture innovation? Only one reply. Okay. So we do need to do some work towards more innovation. So here are the results of our short game together. Hope you enjoyed it. And let's make innovation fun, always fun. Fun and informative. Thank you very much.
So I'm getting some feedback that there was lots of technical difficulties and people couldn't exactly participate. So anyway, we're going to say a big A for effort and thank you to Avigdor for that game. And I want to say thank you to all for taking part and taking the time to participate in our webinar. We hope our tools help municipalities become more effective and sustainable, promoting innovative procurement and smart solutions. in our communal goal to make cities healthier and happier. I want to thank Lihi Koren, the Kfar Saba project manager, for producing this event. It was a pleasure working with you as usual. We hope you all stay connected and in contact with us, and follow our website to take part in upcoming events. And that's it. Shalom from Israel.